The Buxton equation. When elite talent meets organizational desperation, there's a sound that echoes through the Bronx right now. It's the sound of a front office that's running out of time. It's the sound of a fan base that's growing impatient. It's the sound of ownership that expects championships every single year. It's the sound of pressure mounting with every passing day. And that sound is forcing the New York Yankees to look at options they might not have otherwise considered. One of those options is Byron Buxton. The Minnesota Twins center fielder has quietly climbed toward the top of the Yankees trade discussions. He's become one of the most intriguing potential trade candidates on the market. He's offering exactly the type of explosive offensive production that New York desperately needs. And despite currently dealing with a hip strain, his combination of elite power, athleticism, and game-changing ability has reportedly kept him firmly on Brian Cashman's radar. Let's talk about what's actually happening inside the Yankees organization right now. The pressure has reached a level few expected just a few weeks ago. Injuries to key stars have placed the offense under enormous strain. Aaron Judge is still sidelined. Giancarlo Stanton is working toward a full recovery. The production that once carried the club through difficult stretches has suddenly disappeared. And now, another troubling issue has emerged. The lineup has become dangerously inconsistent. Paul Goldschmidt, after enjoying an impressive resurgence earlier in the season, has fallen into one of the worst slumps of his career. Other offensive pieces have simultaneously gone cold. The Yankees are struggling to score runs. The Yankees are losing games they should be winning. The Yankees are falling further behind in the AL East. And the front office understands that simply waiting for injured players to return may no longer be enough. Every game carries more weight. The American League playoff picture is tightening. Losing momentum in July can have serious consequences in October. The Yankees need to inject life back into a lineup that's become dangerously inconsistent. That's where Byron Buxton comes in. Let's talk about what Byron Buxton actually represents. Buxton is one of baseball's most talented players whenever healthy. His ability to change a game with one swing is extraordinary. His combination of elite power, athleticism, and game-changing ability is rare. He's the kind of player who can immediately provide protection throughout the Yankees' batting order, especially while Judge and Stanton continue working toward full recoveries. But power is not Buxton's only strength. His speed allows him to pressure opposing defenses every time he reaches base. His defensive ability in center field remains among the league's best. He's a complete player. He's a player who impacts every aspect of the game. Acquiring Buxton would immediately shift opposing pitching strategies. Teams would no longer be able to focus entirely on neutralizing the remaining middle-of-the-order threats. His presence alone creates matchup problems. Pitchers know that even one mistake can instantly become a home run. So from a baseball perspective, from a roster construction perspective, from a championship window perspective, Buxton is exactly what the Yankees need. But here's where the conversation gets complicated. Here's where we have to talk about the massive elephant in the room: Buxton's health. Throughout his career, Buxton has struggled to stay on the field consistently. He's dealt with injuries. He's missed significant time. He's been the kind of player who, when healthy, is elite, but when injured, is unavailable. And his latest hip injury only adds another layer of uncertainty. A hip injury is serious. A hip injury can linger. A hip injury can affect a player's ability to perform at an elite level. A hip injury can impact power production. A hip injury can impact speed. A hip injury can impact everything. So for any team considering a blockbuster trade for Buxton, medical evaluations will likely play an enormous role before negotiations become serious. The Yankees will need to understand the severity of the hip injury. They'll need to understand the timeline for recovery. They'll need to understand whether Buxton can actually perform at an elite level when he returns. That's the critical unknown. That's the thing that makes this trade risky. Now, let's talk about what the Minnesota Twins would want in return. From Minnesota's perspective, the decision is far from simple. Buxton remains one of the franchise's most recognizable stars. Moving him would represent a major organizational shift. But if the Twins determine they are not legitimate championship contenders, maximizing his trade value before the deadline could become increasingly attractive. The Twins are currently in a position where they could go either direction. They could stay competitive and hold on to Buxton, or they could fall out of contention and decide to sell. And that decision will likely be made over the next few weeks. If the Twins decide to sell, if they decide to move Buxton, then the Yankees would probably have to give up significant prospect capital. They would probably have to give up multiple top prospects. They would probably have to give up the kind of package that would hurt their long-term organizational depth. But the Yankees have the financial flexibility to absorb significant salary if necessary. That advantage allows them to engage in conversations that many smaller market teams simply cannot entertain. The bigger question becomes whether the prospect cost required to land Buxton matches the organization's long-term vision. Now, let's talk about the broader context of the Yankees situation. For Brian Cashman, this deadline may define the remainder of the Yankees season. Fans are growing impatient. Ownership expects the end to compete for championships every single year. Standing still while rivals improve simply isn't an acceptable strategy in the Bronx. The Yankees understand that opportunities to acquire impact players rarely come without risk. Every blockbuster carries uncertainty, whether through injuries, contract commitments, or prospect packages. Yet organizations chasing championships cannot allow fear to dictate every decision. So the question becomes, is Byron Buxton worth the risk? Here's my assessment. It depends on the specifics. If Buxton's hip injury is minor, if he's expected to return to full health soon, if medical evaluations suggest he could perform at an elite level, then acquiring him makes sense. Then the prospect capital is worth it. Then the risk is manageable. But if Buxton's hip injury is serious, if he's expected to miss significant time, if medical evaluations suggest he might not return to full health, then acquiring him doesn't make sense. Then the prospect capital is too high. Then the risk is too great. The Yankees need to get a clear picture of Buxton's health situation before they make any moves. They need to understand what they're actually getting. They need to understand whether they're acquiring a healthy, elite player or a player who might be dealing with chronic injury issues. Because if Buxton is healthy, if he can perform at an elite level, then he could be the missing piece that pushes the Yankees over the edge. He could be the player who changes everything. He could be the acquisition that defines the deadline. But if Buxton is not healthy, if he's going to miss significant time, if he's going to be unreliable, then acquiring him would be a disaster. It would be the kind of move that the Yankees will regret for years. So here's my question for you. Should the Yankees pursue Byron Buxton aggressively? Should they trade significant prospect capital for a player with injury concerns? Is the potential reward worth the risk? Or should they focus on other options? Should they look for a healthier player? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe the Yankees should take a calculated risk on Byron Buxton if his health checks out, if you think he could be the missing piece that sparks their offense, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the trade deadline is rapidly approaching, and the decisions the Yankees make in the next few weeks could determine whether they win a championship or fall short, because they couldn't get their offensive production right.